for this country and for democracy. You will recall at the last briefing, my interactive session with you, I said to you, really my commitment that we'll be having this update from time to time with respect to, as we move ahead through our party recalibration towards the national conventions. And this is one of such. So you recall that the 99th NEC meeting held on 27th, which you graciously attended at our own invitation. And at that meeting, which was properly convened, called, which was very massively attended by members of the National Executive Committee of our party across the country, with all major critical stakeholders attending. And at that meeting, a couple of things took place. One was the fact that, preparatory to our national convention, the NEC recognized that the need for more meetings so that we can have a national convention that is seamless and that has a kind of a buy-in of all segments of the party and members across the country. At that meeting, you recall that the NEC unanimously at the 99th meeting scheduled and approved the 30th of June for the next NEC meeting, which is about a week from now. And consistent with our plans, together, acts together, we needed to brief you to know where we are, what we're doing, and the fact that that 100th meeting, which is coming on the 30th of June, duly and unanimously convened by the NEC. So, and of course, there was a communique read at the end of the meeting by the chairman of the party conveying those resolutions. You recall at that meeting that two other critical decisions were taken. One, the constitution of the main officers of the zoning committee and of course the convention committee. And the end of this was directed to begin in consultation with various organs of the party and stakeholders and interests to ensure that the population of those committees are conducted or ensured. And that has continued. That is ongoing. And the committees from my feelers have done exceedingly well in that process, and that's ongoing. So the 100th meeting is to have a review of these processes. And so our members, the members of the National Executive Committees, are ready and they're preparing from the feelers we're getting that they are ready to participate actively at the next National Executive Committee meeting, which has been scheduled by the NEC for the 30th of June. Now, I think some certain things needs to be put in perspective. That there are statutory meetings by the constitution of this party. Because, like I always say, we don't have a perfect document. The PDP concern is almost near perfect. They said that it makes provision for all of this. And I will share some of this with you so that the public will be aware, our members will be well informed about what it is. There are two major bodies in the party, the NWC and the NEC, that are required under the constitution to have statutory meetings. Under section 29, subsection 3 of the constitution of the party. I just want to bring you up to speed to this so you have the background of our understanding of how we operate as a party. The National Working Committee, under section 29.3, is expected to meet at least twice a month, every fortnight. That is statutory meeting. Because they are the managers of the party. Then section 36, section 34, subsection 4, talks about the National Executive Committee meeting. And it talks about, and I will read that for clarity. The National Executive Committee shall meet at least once every quarter at the instance of the national chairman or at the request of a third of his members, who shall notify the chairman at least 7 days prior to this meeting. And an emergency meeting may be summoned by the national chairman and have regard to all the circumstances of the meeting. So you can see these two bodies. They have statutory roles and period to hold meetings. One, the NWC as managers would have their affairs, and then they submit those reports and affairs to the NEC. One, it's like a board, it's like a company. You have management of a company. You have board of governors. So what you do quarterly is to show your reports, and then you can direct or guide as appropriate, having the overall picture of what the company is doing. So the party is like that. You have the National Working Committee as managers. We have the NEC as like the board of governors or board of directors to which you submit reports and your activities, and they review that and they can give directives. And if there's need, you convey an emergency meeting, depending on circumstances. So it is in the light of that that the 100 meeting of the NEC that has been conveyed and duly conveyed by the 99 NEC meeting was summoned, such as to receive reports and to ensure that the decisions of the 99 meeting can be reviewed in view of the file that we're getting ready for our national convention. So it is on the basis of that happened. And at that meeting, by a motion moved by the governor of Oyo State, seconded by the minority leader in the Senate, Senator Abamoro, it was approved that the 100 meeting should take place. And then there was a further direction that INEC should be informed by way of courtesy. It must be clear that INEC has no role whatsoever in participating in regular meetings of these bodies that are drawn to you. They have no role at all. And it must be clear to the whole world so that if there are issues that have come, I'll come presently to the issues that I've been reading the last 1 week. And then you can see some of the distressing body thing coming from INEC, which of course is very unfortunate. But we'll go into that. But I haven't established this background. The background is that these two meetings, as provided in the consult for the bodies, INEC has no role. However, there's an exception. And those are the issues that the Supreme Court has said they are internal affairs of the party. To the extent that when we are holding NWC meeting, we don't tell INEC. When we're holding the regular NEC meetings, we don't tell INEC. Except as provided for in the Electoral Act. And the only time that you need to give a 21 days notice to INEC is as provided in the Electoral Act, as well as the guideline of INEC. INEC should have a relationship with this because they manage, but they don't direct parties when it comes to their internal affairs. Because the courts have been so clear in plethora of cases, several cases, that the courts have no jurisdiction in the internal affairs of the party. One of such is convening regular meetings, which is NWC meeting, National Executive Committee meetings. So, but there are exceptions. And the exception is this: because we must make report to INEC if we have a convention that is elected, if we have congresses that is elected, if we have primaries where somebody will emerge as candidate. Because we have to make report to INEC, we are duty bound under the law and the regulation of INEC to request and say we're giving you 21 days notice. The letter informing INEC must so state it. And so, in those situations, then you are bound by law to give INEC 21 days notice. Now, it takes me to what has been happening lately. Now, pursuant to the directive of the NEC at the 99 meeting, in any event, just for clarity, this is the attendance register for members that attended the 99 meeting, where it was unanimously, it wasn't even two-thirds, it was unanimously agreed that the 100th meeting should take place. On the 30th, duly proposed, resolution moved and seconded and approved unanimously. Based on that directive, that INEC, that the chairman, acting national chairman of the party should inform INEC. The party on the 30th of May, please take note of these timelines. On the 30th of May, the party wrote to INEC, and I'll read it for clarity. I know a lot of you have it, but again, for purposes of this conversation, I think for the emphasis, we need to draw attention to it so that the public will know, you will know, the party members will know, that this party has been doing everything in accordance with the law, in accordance with its constitution, in accordance with the practice and convention. And this is the letter received by INEC on 30th of May. That's it, the receipt of INEC. And I'll read it, I pray to indulgence to read it. Notice of, hear this, notice of 100th National Executive Committee meeting of the People's Democratic Party. That's the heading. Signed by the acting national chairman. It says we write to formally inform and invite the INEC that the leadership of our great party, the People's Democratic Party, has scheduled our 100th National Executive Committee meeting to hold on Monday, June 30th, 2025 at the National Secretariat of our party, Wadata Plaza, Use Zone 5, Abuja. This is for the Commission's information and necessary actions, please. While thanking you for your usual cooperation, kindly acknowledge receipt of this letter and please accept the assurances of our highest leader. 30th of May, received our same day. Now, INEC replied to this letter. Reckon that the background I said before, that they have no business at those statutory meetings of the party, except for a meeting that is called for an election of officers, for issues that relates to mergers and arrangement with another party or future parties, and 3, when you are providing or producing your candidates for elections. Those are 3 areas when you must give 21 days. And the reason is this, because INEC will ultimately have to deal with the outcome of those meetings. They need to get a register of political parties officers in their records. So if there are conventions that produces members of national working committees, they will be there to monitor and to observe the process, and so that when reports are being sent by the party, they will have a copy of it because they will have monitored and they will have a duplicate copy. It's like a back end situation. So whatever is coming from the field and communicated with them will align with what they do have on the field, have them monitored. Now, with a letter signed by the acting secretary of the commission. Now, because whoever signs a letter is an internal affair of the party, right? It is not for INEC to tell us who can sign. Because an acting secretary signed there, we couldn't have said we won't recognize your letter because it was signed by acting secretary. If a court has said, Sarah, that anything that has to do with the internal affairs of the party, the court is not justiciable like we say in law, and we have no jurisdiction over it, If the court do not have the decision about what happened with the internal affairs of the party, I wonder why INEC will. Because that is not the job of INEC. It is not. If we designate somebody to be the person to sign letter, so be it. And that's why it's an internal affair of the party. Now listen to this curious letter. I'll slowly read it so you can get the grasp of it. The letter was dated June 13th. We wrote our own May 30th. It took INEC 13 days. 13. To reply. That's the date. And curiously, you see, as you go through this, you begin to see the curious and begin to ask questions. What's going on here? Why the desperation to kill political parties? All in the need to go towards one party state, stifle opposition, which is just, like I've said earlier here, it's wishful thinking, it's hallucination. And APC should know that this is hallucinating. This country will not go into one party state, and nobody, no matter how powerful, whether you're a president or you're a combination of president, will not work. It won't work. And it's clear. Now, the letter of INEC. It said notice of 100 National Executive Committee meeting of the People's Democratic Party. Your letter on the above subject matter refers. We won't teach INEC how to write letters, but you should have said your letter dated so on this above refers. Right? They didn't. It was clever. You should have referred to the date of the letter when they received it. They didn't want to show that it took them 13 days to write the letter, to even begin to think to write. Now, 2, the commission draws your attention that the notice is not in compliance with the requirement of Part 2, subsection 12(3) of the regulations and guidelines for political parties, 22, that provides, quote, the national chairman and national secretary of the party shall jointly sign the notice of convention, congress, conference or meeting, and submit same to the commission, be guided. Please accept the assurances of the commission high regard. Let's flip back to what we said before. This is the regulation of INEC. I'll read it to you so you can understand. This is a regulation about the so-called Part 2, subsection 212(3) of the regulation and guidelines of political parties. There you go. I'll read it. Part 212 says, every political party shall give the commission at least 21 days notice through a dedicated portal created for that purpose by the commission or of any convention, hear this, any convention, congress, conference, or meeting convened for the purpose, hear this, for the purpose of merger and electing members of its National Executive Committee, other governing bodies, or nominating candidates for any of the elective offices specified in the Electoral Act 2022. A hard copy of the notice may be submitted to the commission through a registered mail. Subsection 2. The notice shall indicate the purpose. Hear this again. The notice shall indicate the purpose, venue, date, time, and mode, whether virtual or in person, of the convention, congress, or meeting. We never mentioned here that we're giving you notice for that. Now, the acting secretary of INEC decided to import by himself a purpose on behalf of the party. We didn't say to you we are conducting a meeting to elect officers. We didn't say we're going to do primaries to get nominated for an elected position. We didn't say we're meeting because we're considering possibility of mergers. So where does Haliru Aminu, where did he get that from? So he decided on his own to import a purpose for our meeting to satisfy some vested interest from what we're getting from the grapevine, to ensure that they can continue to stifle the capacity of PDP to do its things in line with its constitution. And that is the whole thing about this. So you see, why can't INEC wait for us to give them notice of any of those issues? Like, okay, we're giving you 21 days notice. For the records, there have been several times we have issued notices of 21 days notice for congresses or other meetings that requires those things to INEC. And we have had cause at some point to even shift those dates. To say, look, we give you 21 days notice. However, that date will not be conducive anymore. We're moving into a future date for certain things. And they've accepted. So how this acting secretary decide on his own to create and become a member of a political party and create for us an agenda that was not conveyed in the letter of the acting chairman to this. What we have done is to begin to wonder. And so the challenge for us now as a party is today, who is the acting secretary of INEC? What is he working for? What is the objective? Why is he creating an agenda for our party for a regular statutory meeting that is routine, just like the NWC meeting and the National Executive Committee meetings? So those are the questions that should come. And so when people come in, and then I think I read, I think it's social media, one of the newspapers that INEC has cancelled the NEC. I was just laughing, it was hilarious. INEC cannot. It is the party that can decide that for some reasons we're doing this. It's within our right to do. It is not for INEC to do. And so INEC cannot cancel, and I'm sure that must be a characterization because they never said that anyway. They never said that in their letter, and they know they could not have done that. So those are the issues that have popped up, and I think it requires attention sort of for clarification, so that we know, and those are the questions. Who is Hilary Aminu working for? What does this stand to gain? We believe the INEC, because INEC has a duty. It's a public institution funded by taxpayers, and that must be accountable to the Nigerian people. Apart from that, the bigger dimension to it is to the whole world. INEC has partners all over the world. They have various bodies and organizations in the world that is supporting INEC capacity to be able to want to remain independent, to be technically capable, and to ensure that they midwife and help in the electoral process. Those partners, those institutions, they're interested. And so INEC should be conscious about actions like this that can bring in issues that will affect our democracy and the confidence that those international partners have in INEC